Have you ever felt that life is slipping through your fingers, that no matter how hard you try, the hours, the days, the years vanish as if they were never yours to hold? Most people tell themselves that this is normal, that you must work, struggle, and accumulate to feel alive. They insist that if you just follow the steps, check the boxes, and chase the right approvals, meaning will emerge. Yet somehow, meaning remains elusive, hiding behind the very routines that claim to give it. There is a quiet despair that lingers in every man who believes life is something to be fixed rather than lived. And in that despair, a subtle voice whispers, warning you that something essential is being overlooked, something simple and yet profoundly transformative. Before you dismiss this as another motivational thought, consider that the truth is not outside you. It is embedded in how you see yourself in this fleeting moment. Most men spend their lives running after ideals they never question, seeking validation from others, fearing loneliness, fearing failure, fearing even themselves. They believe that if they achieve enough, acquire enough, or perform well enough, they will finally grasp the elusive satisfaction they crave. But the irony, the subtle cruelty of life, is that the very chase blinds them to the richness already present. The meaning you are hunting for is not hidden in distant accolades, not in imagined futures, not in the approval of strangers. It is here, embedded in the awareness of this very breath, this very step, this very thought. And yet, recognizing this requires a courage far deeper than chasing success. It requires a pause, a surrender to the realization that you are not broken, only misdirected. And so the question arises, what would happen if you truly understood this? What if the life you've been wasting, the time you've spent in meaningless rituals, in restless anxiety, in the illusions of should and must, could be seen for what it really is? You would not suddenly become wealthy, famous, or powerful in the worldly sense, but you would begin to reclaim a freedom that no achievement can give. You would see that the cost of truth is often discomfort, alienation, even loneliness, yet it is a price that returns to you the priceless gift of clarity. There is a beauty, a quiet authority, in the man who finally stops participating in the illusions that society reveres and instead observes, listens, and acts with consciousness. If you stay with me in this reflection, I invite you not only to hear these words, but to share them, to comment, to subscribe, because each man who begins to awaken enriches the conversation for all who have yet to find their path. There is no shame in admitting that life has been wasted in parts, but there is hope in realizing that it is never too late to start living consciously. By engaging with this message, you are not merely consuming ideas, you are participating in the quiet revolution of presence, attention, and honesty that Alan Watts so eloquently revealed. And it begins, as all profound awakenings do, with the simple act of remembering what truly matters. Before a man begins to remember, life often feels like a treadmill, a loop of obligations, desires, and distractions that never quite satisfy. He wakes each day, performs the motions expected of him, seeks approval from bosses, peers, or partners, and measures his worth in achievements or possessions. Yet, deep down, a subtle emptiness lingers, a sense that he is living someone else's version of life. Friends, colleagues, even family may admire the surface, the promotions, the skills, the charm, but admiration is no substitute for understanding, and approval can never fill the hollow spaces of a distracted soul. In chasing what others value, he has neglected the most fundamental measure of existence, his own awareness, his own engagement with the moment that is actually happening. Then comes the awakening, quiet at first, almost imperceptible. He begins to notice the spaces between actions, the pauses in thought, the subtle joy in simply existing without striving. He realizes that the endless pursuit of recognition, of validation, is an illusion, a construct designed to keep him distracted from the reality that life is already complete. This insight does not make life easier. In fact, it may make it more complicated in the eyes of others. People notice the change. He seems distant, aloof, perhaps arrogant. They misinterpret his calm detachment as pride, his patience as indifference, his silence as judgment. And yet, beneath that exterior, he is discovering a freedom that the world cannot offer, the freedom to live in accordance with his own perception of truth, rather than the inherited narratives of society. As this clarity deepens, the man begins to reinterpret familiar concepts. Loneliness, once feared, becomes a sanctuary of reflection. Failure, once humiliating, is understood as a teacher guiding him away from illusions. Desire, once compulsive, transforms into choice, an instrument of insight rather than a chain of suffering. He sees that what seemed like weakness, a pause, a refusal to participate in the frantic chase, actually manifests as strength, the kind of strength that is silent, grounded, and resilient. And every step he takes in this new awareness ripples outward, subtly altering his relationships and his environment. He is no longer dictated by the expectations of others, yet he moves through the world with a grace and integrity that quietly commands respect. This shift is not sudden, it is cumulative, layered, and often disorienting. Old habits die slowly, and the world resists the change. Yet with each moment of conscious living, the man's inner life grows richer, more vivid, more connected to the eternal rhythm of existence. What once felt like wasted time begins to reveal its purpose, each misstep a lesson, each discomfort a mirror reflecting a deeper reality. And in this unfolding, he starts to understand something remarkable, that life has not been wasted at all. It has been the preparation, the raw material, the contrast needed to recognize the beauty of presence and the power of awakening. As the man continues this journey, the reactions of others become increasingly apparent. Friends, colleagues, even family members may sense a distance in him, a quiet shift that they cannot quite name. To them, he appears strange, perhaps cold, even arrogant, because he no longer seeks approval or validation as he once did. Conversations that once flowed easily now feel different. His laughter may come less frequently, but it carries weight, precision, and authenticity. The world, accustomed to masks and performances, struggles to comprehend someone who moves through it with the subtle confidence of awareness rather than the loud assertion of ego. Yet in that distance lies his true presence, a solidity that cannot be shaken by fleeting opinions or external chaos. Inside, he feels a freedom that is both exhilarating and unnerving. The tension between how he appears and who he has become creates a fertile space for reflection and growth. Whereas before, he measured himself against others, now he measures himself against life itself, against the clarity of his perception and the honesty of his choices. He notices how small the world's expectations really are, how little they matter compared to the depth of consciousness he is beginning to inhabit. In social gatherings, in work, in casual interactions, he moves like someone fully awake, and even if others misinterpret him, the serenity he feels cannot be taken or diminished. It is the paradox of awakening. What seems like separation is actually connection to reality. What appears as isolation is the presence of truth. This stage also brings an acute awareness of subtle illusions that once governed his behavior. Status, possessions, achievements, all of these external measures of worth now reveal themselves as temporary and hollow. People may still pursue them with fervor, seeking identity in fleeting markers, but he no longer participates in the charade. The relief is immense, almost disorienting at first. The constant pressure to prove, to perform, to please dissipates, leaving only the raw, unfiltered experience of being alive. And in this space, he discovers that the essence of life is not in accumulation, but in attention, in awareness, in the deliberate engagement with each moment. The transformation is quiet, invisible to the casual observer, yet profound. The man who once existed in distraction and compulsion now inhabits a world rich with nuance and subtlety. He recognizes the hidden patterns of behavior in himself and others, the invisible agreements that sustain illusion, and the beauty that lies in stepping aside from them. And though his external life may appear unchanged or even strange, his internal landscape has expanded, offering clarity, resilience, and a freedom that few will ever recognize, but that he alone knows is real. This is the tension between appearance and essence. The world may misread him, but he has discovered what truly matters, and in that discovery, he begins to reclaim his life. As the man grows into this awareness, he begins to see familiar concepts in a radically different light. Loneliness, which once felt like a punishment or a void, now becomes a sanctuary, a space where he can confront himself honestly without distraction. Silence, once awkward or threatening, transforms into a source of insight, revealing layers of thought and feeling he never knew existed. What he once feared as weakness, the willingness to step back, to pause, to disengage from the relentless pursuit of validation, he now recognizes as a rare form of power. There is a subtle majesty in simply being present, a dignity in refusing to participate in the endless charade of appearances, a freedom that no accolade or approval can grant. Desire, too, is transformed. He no longer chases compulsively, no longer measures his happiness by acquisition or conquest. Instead, he sees desire as a compass, a tool that, when understood, guides him toward experiences that are meaningful rather than fleeting. Failure, which once brought shame and frustration, becomes a teacher, a mirror reflecting where attachment, illusion, or avoidance once held sway. Each mistake, each disappointment is now recognized not as a loss, but as a vital step in understanding the deeper mechanics of his own mind. In this reinterpretation, life ceases to be a battle against circumstance and becomes an intimate dialogue with reality, revealing its wisdom in quiet, patient ways. This shift also alters his relationships. He no longer seeks to impress, manipulate, or control through cleverness or charm. People notice, sometimes with confusion, sometimes with admiration, that he moves through interactions with integrity and ease. The tension between what others expect and how he now chooses to exist creates subtle friction, but it also reveals the core of his character. Those who once dismissed him may now respect the depth of his presence. Those who depended on his compliance may now feel challenged by his independence. And through it all, he discovers a remarkable truth. The essence of influence is not in dominating others, but in mastering oneself. Ultimately, the man learns that what once seemed like emptiness, moments of stillness, quiet reflection, or the absence of achievement, is actually fulfillment. What once looked like loss, the letting go of old habits, the refusal to pursue empty accolades, the willingness to stand apart, is liberation. He understands that the value of life is not in the quantity of experiences or the approval received, but in the clarity and authenticity of his engagement with each moment. And this understanding begins to permeate every aspect of his existence: his work, his relationships, his perception of the world, and most importantly, his relationship with himself. In this way, weakness becomes strength, emptiness becomes richness, and loss becomes freedom. As this new awareness deepens, the consequences begin to ripple outward, affecting both his inner world and his external life. On the outside, the man may appear distant, enigmatic, or even unapproachable. Friends may feel the subtle shift and struggle to reconcile the familiar face with the man who now moves with quiet self-possession. Colleagues might misinterpret his calm detachment as arrogance or disinterest, while acquaintances sense a depth they cannot name. Yet beneath this surface perception, he is cultivating an inner landscape of freedom and clarity that no external opinion can disturb. The paradox is striking. The more he disengages from superficial expectation, the more present and potent his true self becomes. Inside, every moment of conscious living reinforces his resilience. The anxiety that once defined his existence, the endless comparison, the restless pursuit of approval, begins to dissolve. He realizes that fear, once a driver of compulsive action, now serves as a signal, a gentle nudge to observe, pause, and choose deliberately. In this space, he experiences the rare sense of alignment where desire, action, and awareness intersect. His life is no longer dictated by the pressures of the world, but shaped by the quiet authority of presence. Each decision, each interaction, each choice of thought becomes an act of conscious participation rather than reaction. He discovers a strength that is invisible but unmistakable, a fortitude born not of resistance, but of understanding. This evolution also transforms his relationships in subtle yet profound ways. Those around him may initially feel challenged or unsettled, unable to recognize the shift. Yet over time, his authenticity draws others in, creating connections built not on need or manipulation, but on mutual respect and sincerity. He is no longer caught in the cycle of seeking validation, and in that liberation, he becomes a mirror of possibility for others. Observers may misinterpret his independence as separation, but in reality, it is the clarity of truth manifesting itself. His life, once fragmented by pursuit and distraction, now gains cohesion through conscious engagement and unshakable presence. As these layers accumulate, the transformation is unmistakable, even if quiet. The man experiences a richness of awareness that fills every corner of his inner world, a depth of perception that brings joy in simple moments and courage in difficult ones. What once seemed like tedious repetition, futile striving, or wasted time now reveals itself as preparation, contrast, and learning. Each experience, each trial, each encounter contributes to the evolving clarity that shapes his life. And in this ongoing unfolding, he begins to recognize the profound gift of remembering that life, when lived consciously, is not something to be accumulated or conquered, but something to be observed, engaged, and treasured in its simplest, most present form. Now the transformation reaches a stage where the inner and outer lives of the man begin to harmonize, forming a subtle yet profound synthesis. The habits, anxieties, and compulsions that once dictated his existence have been replaced by deliberate attention and thoughtful engagement. Outwardly, he may still appear unconventional, detached from the frantic pace of society, but this is no longer a retreat or an avoidance. Instead, it is the natural expression of a man who has stopped participating in illusions and begun inhabiting the truth of his own consciousness. The clarity he experiences internally radiates outward, not as showmanship, but as a quiet authority that cannot be ignored. He notices how even ordinary interactions carry new meaning. Conversations are richer, silence is more potent, and every encounter offers insight rather than mere distraction. The world does not always understand him, and often it resists his new rhythm, yet he is no longer dependent on recognition or approval. Where he once might have sought validation through status or charm, he now rests in the knowledge that his presence is sufficient. This shift is subtle but transformative. The external appearance of calm or strangeness masks a profound internal liberation, a freedom that stems from alignment with reality rather than compliance with expectation. At the same time, he understands that life's fleeting nature is not something to mourn, but something to embrace. Each moment, each decision, each sensation is precious precisely because it will not last. What he once wasted in anxiety and distraction is now reclaimed as conscious experience. Failures, losses, and disappointments are no longer burdens, but mirrors revealing truth and growth. He sees that every struggle and every moment of confusion were part of the preparation, the shaping of a mind capable of seeing clearly, a heart capable of living fully. This recognition deepens his gratitude, his patience, and his courage, transforming even ordinary life into an arena of profound meaning. In these final layers of development, he realizes that the essence of life is not in accumulation or external conquest, but in conscious presence and honest engagement. The man who once wandered through existence chasing illusions now walks with purpose, rooted in awareness itself. His external world may appear unchanged, but the interior life is rich, grounded, and vibrant. In this space, he discovers the paradox that Alan Watts often spoke of, that freedom comes not from having more, but from desiring less, that strength comes not from dominating, but from understanding, and that clarity comes not from acquiring, but from remembering. Every layer of his transformation builds toward the inevitable recognition that life, fully attended to, is already complete, already meaningful, and entirely his to inhabit. And so at last, the man sees the truth of what he has been learning all along. What once looked like isolation, the quiet moments of reflection, the detachment from the ceaseless chase, reveals itself as clarity. What once seemed like weakness, the refusal to conform, the courage to stand apart from expectation, emerges as power, a strength that does not demand recognition, but commands it by its mere presence. What appeared to be loss, the letting go of validation, the abandonment of empty pursuits, the conscious choice to walk a path less traveled, turns into liberation. He understands that nothing has been wasted, that every moment, every struggle, every misstep was a preparation for this awakening, this profound recognition of life as it is, not as it was imagined to be. In this realization, he experiences a quiet contentment that cannot be disturbed by circumstance. He is not rejected, not broken, not deficient. He is whole, alive, and deeply present. The world may misread him, others may misjudge him, yet he moves through existence with a certainty born of knowing himself, a freedom born of embracing the moment, a joy born of conscious attention. Life is no longer a relentless pursuit of distant goals or hollow victories, but an unfolding journey in which each breath, each step, each connection carries significance. In this clarity, the man is finally liberated from the illusions that once bound him, and he discovers the paradoxical truth that the very things he once feared, the quiet, the stillness, the apparent emptiness, are the instruments of his deepest fulfillment. And now, as you reflect on this journey, consider what it means for your own life. You do not have to follow the exact same path, but you can begin by noticing where your attention has been consumed by illusion, where your energy has been spent seeking approval, and where the richness of the present moment has been overlooked. There is power in remembering, in pausing, in reclaiming the awareness that has always been yours. Each step toward conscious living strengthens your presence, clarifies your mind, and deepens your freedom. You are not trapped by past choices or missed opportunities. You are alive, capable, and entirely able to inhabit the life before you. If this reflection resonates, take a moment to subscribe. Share this with someone who may need to hear it, and comment with your own experience or insight. Every comment enriches the conversation, every shared reflection extends its reach, and every engagement reminds us that we are not alone in the journey toward understanding. Life is fleeting, yes, but in conscious presence it becomes luminous, meaningful, and fully ours. Remember this, and let it guide the way you choose to live, not in pursuit of what is imagined, but in awareness of what truly is.